Good evening. We want to welcome everyone to the May 15th edition of the Planning Commission meeting. We're going to go ahead this evening. We do have both a board of zoning adjustment meeting as well as our normal Planning Commission meeting. So we will have two meetings this evening. We're going to begin by, if Laura would not mind to please call the roll.
Rebecca Fincher.
Present.
Laura King is here. Drew Spurgers.
Here.
Alexander Bainey.
Present.
Adam Bell. Mark Ferguson. Letitia Sanders-Jones.
Present.
Lori Quinn.
Here.
Ethan Reed.
Present.
Oh, it's not on my...
Yeah, there was a
Jensen.
printing error on there.
Gotcha.
Bonus.
Awesome. Thanks, Jensen. Okay, we have everyone here, and so we do have a quorum. So we're going to go ahead and move into the Board of Zoning Adjustment portion of our meeting. And so we will go ahead and turn that over to staff to present this one and only item. This will have a public hearing component to it.
Good evening. This is a variance request at 3200 Dave Ward Drive, which is where they're looking to build the new harps. The variance is for height. In the C2 zoning district, the maximum height allowed by code is 25 feet. This building, if you look at a picture of the building itself, the main structure will be 26 feet tall, and then at the two ends, you have the two towers, and those will be 32 feet and 38 feet tall. So since those are all over the 25-foot allowance, that's why the variance was requested. We took a look at it. Given the location of the site and surrounding properties, the variance will likely not have a negative impact in the area. We would recommend approval with the following conditions. The allowed maximum height for the building is 38 feet. The detached fuel canopy must comply with height regulations per zoning code 306.4 and in accordance with conditional use permit 1122-0387. And any additional structures or redevelopment will be required to meet the 25-foot maximum height allowed by the zoning code. We're looking at just the main harps building for this. Questions?
All right. Is the applicant here to speak in favor of the request?
Hi,
Name and address.
Sarah Hopper, 918 South Gutenson. And Ryan's done a good job of describing it, but if you have any questions, I can answer those.
Comfortable with all the recommendations from staff?
Yes.
Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone present to speak in opposition? Seeing none, we will just bring that back into commission for discussion. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion from Alexander, second from Drew. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The chair also votes aye, just for the... So with that, we will consider that approved. We will go ahead and adjourn the Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting. I will also mention that the minutes for the Board of Zoning will be combined with the Planning Commission minutes. So we will move in. We are going to call the roll again. So Laura, if you do not mind, can you please call the roll for the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes. Rebecca Fincher.
Present.
Laura King is present. Drew Spurgers.
Present.
Alexander Bainey.
Present.
Adam Bell. Mark Ferguson. Letitia Sanders-Jones.
Present.
Lori Quinn.
Here.
Ethan Reed.
Present.
Jensen Teal.
Tilkey.
Tilkey.
Almost here.
Thank you, Laura. So we do have a quorum. All members are present. Just a few housekeeping items while you all are looking over the minutes. If you haven't had a chance, the Conway Planning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council on public hearing items. Items reviewed on this agenda will be considered by the City Council as early as May 23rd, 2023. Items not approved by the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Adjustment may be appealed to the City Council within 30 days of the date of denial. With that, have you all had a chance to look at the minutes?
Make
Yes.
a motion, we accept the minutes.
Had a motion
Seconded.
and a second from Alexander. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, with that, the minutes from the April 17th meeting are approved. So we have an appeal review to kick off tonight's Planning Commission meeting. So with that, do we have anyone from the staff that's going to present this?
It'll be me,
Okay,
Madam Chair.
you know, it's when like them, I can see them standing up over here. You're gonna
Yes.
have to like elbow me. So,
Right.
all right, so we will turn that over to you, Chris.
Madam Chair, the Planning Commission has heard this item before. There was an issue with the notification to the applicant at the time for the date of the meeting, so we were able to get this back on the agenda. This is an appeal for the denial of a sign variance for overheight sign. Staff comments: after review of the request, the director made the following considerations. Number one, the applicant stated in their hardship that an existing off-premise directional sign on the corner of Oak Street and Simon would block the visibility of AutoZone sign from traffic heading east along East Oak Street. After a visit, the director went to the site and planned location of the sign, and it does not appear that the sign at the corner of East Oak Street and Simon Street would interfere with the visibility of the sign headed east on Oak Street. The exhibit that's provided below in your packet shows the approximate location of the proposed sign and the sign at the corner of Oak and Simon. In the future, it is expected that the non-conforming sign at Oak Street and Simon Streets will be removed with future redevelopment or new development. Number two, the director reviewed considerations as to the applicant's discussion regarding other businesses within the area of the proposed AutoZone location having existing taller freestanding signs, and which the applicant believes that by requesting a taller sign, this would not take away from other area businesses. The City Council, at the unanimous request of the Planning Commission, has recently adopted new considerations for the Oak Street corridor with the Oak Street Ahead corridor plan. This frontage is within Oak Street District 3 conceptual area. Oak Street Ahead promotes considerations for sign regulations by applying to all new development or redevelopment along this corridor. While staff is aware of non-conforming issues related to signage within this area, staff interprets the recently adopted considerations as a desire by the council and the commission to reduce non-conforming issues along this corridor, and considers signs to be an issue along Oak Street which need more in-depth review and consideration. I'll hand that back to you.
That is the applicant here to speak on the request for the variance. Yeah, come on up. And when you get up there, if you don't mind to state your name and your address, that would be great.
David Ashley, 19825 Jones Road, Little Rock.
Thank you, David.
And hello, I'm sorry we missed the last meeting. I did not know that we were on the docket. We're back with the same thing, is the sign is blocking it, and the future removal, no way of telling when that would be. And AutoZone just feels like having the sign would give them visibility, for a new store. And they've, the way they've got it drawn up, they're going to make it pretty so it won't look like it's just a sign standing there. That's the only argument I have.
Are there any questions for David this evening? We're going to let you go back and sit down, but we reserve the right to bring you back from the bullpen if that's
Thank
okay.
you.
All right. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this? Anyone to speak in opposition? Okay. With that, I'm going to bring it back into commission for a little bit of discussion here.
Yeah, so I guess I'll say where I'm at. With the adoption of the Oak Street Ahead proposal or plan, I think my opinion would be to stick with what's in that, which would agree with the director's decision.
Support Adam in that.
Same.
Is there any other differing thought that we might need to explore this evening?
Only other thing I was thinking is if they wanted to have a conversation with the owner of that sign that isn't even really, looks like it's not being used very much, maybe that would be an incentive for them to update that sign as well, where maybe it didn't interfere.
I can speak to that a
Yeah,
little bit.
go.
This is actually going in the Oak Street Ahead plan. This corner of Simon and Oak Street is actually anticipated at some point in the future to be a part of a larger district, and this would be considered like a gateway area. So we do anticipate with some sort of future development to have some sort of beautification at this area if that's followed in the Oak Street Ahead plan.
Is it appropriate to infer then the sign that is at Oak and Simon would, Yeah, come down.
As
That's the
of right
question.
now, it's non-conforming, so it would eventually come down with a future redevelopment. That's correct.
That's helpful. Is there any other discussion?
So the motion here would be to uphold the director's suggestion.
I think that is how the motion would, if that is the feeling of the commission, how the motion will need to come across. Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Drew and a second from Ethan. And just to clarify, this is to uphold the director's decision. So with that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, with that, the director's decision is upheld. So we will move into our public hearing items for the evening. And the first item, looks like Ryan is going to have this for us. It's a request to rezone property at 2138 Old Morrilton Highway.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request made by Faustina Hurtado to rezone 1.87 acres from the current zoning of R2, which is a two-family residential district, to O1 General Office District. We looked at the zoning surrounding this, and it's pretty much all over the place. You have C3 to the north. The east, you have R2 and MF1, which is multifamily. West, you have R2, and in the south, you have agriculture. On our comprehensive plan, this area was designated as a planned unit development. I don't know if at the time that the plan was adopted, if they were working with the developer to have a planned unit development out here, but it's just odd to see that on the comprehensive plan. Current traffic counts on Old Morrilton Highway is 9,700 average daily traffic. The site is not within any flood zones. And the master street plan shows Old Morrilton Highway as a major arterial. We have reviewed this, and we would recommend approval of the rezoning with the improvements to the to access from the I-40 corridor. Development in this area is likely to grow and grow with a higher intensity. Any questions?
Any questions for Ryan? Okay, thanks, Ryan. Is the applicant present to speak in favor of the request? Awesome. If you could state your name and your address for us, please.
Faustino Hurtado, 2138 Old Morrilton Highway.
And then can you talk to us about your request and anything you have to add to Ryan's presentation?
No, that's pretty much.
Are you comfortable with the recommendations and the comments from the staff?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this request? Okay. With that, I will bring it into commission for discussion. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendations.
Second.
Motion from Alexander and a second from Drew. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the ayes have it. With that, we will move on to item B, a request to rezone a portion of 1540 Old Morrilton Highway from R1 to C3, and Beth has us this evening.
Yes, so what we're looking at this evening is about a 5-acre portion, which represents a larger lot 2 of a 2-lot subdivision there along the Old Morrilton Highway. This is a remnant piece of R1 that actually only has frontage on Pike Ridge Road. It's a small, poorly maintained road that is just south of the Interstate 40 hillside there. Anyway, this is just simply a request to bring the rest of this property into conformance to allow for commercial development of the area. Comprehensive plan does indicate it appropriate for commercial development. And this was just required before they can move forward with any development plans. That said, nothing specifically has been submitted for this property. It is not anticipated that any residential development will occur north of the site as it lies in RDOT right-of-way for the interstate. So, you have any questions?
Any questions for Beth? Thank you, Beth. Is the applicant here to speak in favor of this request?
Hi there. I'm Brent Salter, 201 Lee Andrew Lane. Yes, as we were going through platting this other parcel over here, we figured out that we still had some R1 land up here. So I think what Beth said is appropriate, and we're just trying to get the use cleaned up.
Questions for Brett this evening? Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Anyone to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I will bring that back into commission for discussion. Commissioners, what are your comments this evening?
I'll make a motion. We accept the staff recommendations.
Who got the second? All right. Mark got the second. Lori moved to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. And with that, item B will stand approved this evening, which will take us to item C, a request for variance to reduce plant screening easement along east property boundary for a property at 112 Shamrock Drive. Beth.
Yes, so this application was actually submitted as a variance, but what it actually constitutes is an exception to an approved subdivision item, as it were. Along the east property boundary, you'll see this is a double frontage lot with the primary frontage and access coming from Shamrock Drive in the subdivision, and the rear of the property oriented towards South Ferris Road. There's been a pool constructed that encroaches into this planting screen easement, and the purpose of that planting screen easement is to prevent access from South Ferris Road. It's a standard requirement of our subdivision regulations. We require it for all double frontage lots. That said, there's no utility facilities located in the easement. We've confirmed with both with engineering and Conway Corporation that the only purpose for this easement as it is platted is for the planting screen easement. So staff recommends reducing the easement by 10 feet to clear up that encroachment and allow the sale of the property.
Any questions for Beth? Is the applicant here to speak in favor of this request? Your name and address, please.
Brandon Fulls, 5325 Sanson Drive. This pool was built in the 90s. It's been there. It's transferred hands multiple times, and she's kind of got left holding the bag on this one. And she did a great job explaining.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Hey, can you state your name and address for us?
Cynthia Allen, and I am at 116 Shamrock Drive.
Okay.
I'm actually the neighbor, and I think that this would be an awesome opportunity for our neighborhood for this enhancement of 10 feet. For selling reasons, I have mine as a rental property. So whenever I want to move the fence line or anything like that, if that were an option, I think that this would be awesome to expand the property line for backyard selling purposes. And also, as you can tell from some of the pictures, that the growing up of plants and stuff is really bad on that back property on the plant enhancement. And so on the road line, I think that this could be a great opportunity for cleanup.
Any questions? That was, yeah, I think we do need to clarify that just in the spirit of transparency. So
Need to clarify that this is just for this property, so it's not
Just
the
for that
entire
one.
easement.
Okay.
If you wanted to or needed to request that, you would have to request it through the planning department.
she could come back and see us.
Sounds good.
Does that work? Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this? Come on up.
Hey, Osborne, I'm the realtor for the seller at 112 Shamrock. I live at 300 Bruce Street, apartment A102 in Conway. The property, it's been sort of an enigma in that it has sold at least 10 times since the pool was built, which was in the early 90s. And so it was just a real shock that this was the first survey that had ever occurred on this property that found out that the pool was in the wrong place. So we are hoping that the council will consider and follow through with maybe to help with the sale of the property. Okay, thank you.
Any questions? We're good. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this request? With that, I will bring it back into commission for discussion.
I just have a general question. Like, how does it get sold 10 times? What caught, after all this time, like, what caught it now that stopped
I
them?
can tell you nobody gets surveys in Conway in neighborhoods, and they should. But people
Let the
usually
record
don't.
reflect, Lori has spoken.
And they should. But that happens often where neighborhoods, you don't get it because you see your neighbors and your fence and you think that's where your property line is. And there are several instances I personally know of like this where someone has built a shed or a shop or something, or your fence is just in the wrong spot. So
It's often discovered when title companies call us for clearance of lot split approval or anything else. We look at the property and make them aware of any conditions, and that's how it was discovered in this instance.
Thank you. It's interesting for Butman have to come here.
We're providing education to the community here tonight. This is great. It's a public service announcement. All right. Any other discussion by the Planning Commission? I will entertain a motion if someone feels compelled.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion from Alexander to accept staff's recommendation. A second from Ethan. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? With that, the motion passes. Congratulations. I hope that that helps you all. So, all right. With that, we will move on to our last item under public hearing, a request to rezone property at 1700 South Boulevard from, well, we'll just turn it over to Ryan and let him go through that.
Yes, ma'am. This is 1700 South Boulevard. This is where Milestones is located. It's on 1.86 acres. The current zoning is R2A, which is two-family residential. The requested rezoning is S1 institutional. The adjacent zoning is R2A. The existing structure is a 26,984 square foot child care and supporting facilities, plus associated outdoor play equipment. We looked at this site before it was Milestones. At one point, it was a church. It's been an institutional use for, based on our research, at least 50 years or more. What they're trying to do is bring this site into compliance with the S1 zoning. The rezoning appears to create no change of use. The applicant is seeking the rezoning to bring the site into conformance with the zoning standards. The land use plan designates this area as single-family development. However, as I stated, it's been an institutional use for 50 plus years. And they're just trying to have the zoning match what it's been used for that time period. Based on everything that we saw, we would recommend approval of the rezoning. Any questions?
Any questions for Ryan? Okay. We reserve the right to bring you back there. Is the applicant here to speak in favor of this? And just before you begin, by method of, just process of elimination, which is how I took every standardized test, I'm going to say that we may have several comments just because it's our last item and we still have folks here. I've not taken the opportunity to explain how that works. So just before anyone speaks, let's just try to address that. So as you can see, the way the evening has gone, we give the opportunity for the applicant to speak in favor, and then we move to opposition. The first speaker, whether it's in favor of opposition, has 10 minutes, and every subsequent speaker has 3. I would ask that we limit it to a total of no more than 3 speakers, both in favor and in opposition. So if you are here to represent a large group, I would ask that you align your message. And so if you, whether it's in favor or in opposition, 10 minutes and then 2 subsequent speakers at 3 minutes apiece. And Ryan and Beth will be our timekeepers for that. So just in the effort of using everybody's time and giving the opportunity for the Planning Commission to thoughtfully consider all comments, that is the request this evening. So if you don't mind to go ahead and state your name and your address, that would be great.
Yes, I'm Emily Ferris with Sal Architects, 27 Bluebird Lane, Conway. Ryan did a pretty good job of explaining everything, but I imagine people are wondering, why are you wanting to rezone it? We didn't actually want to rezone it, but Milestones is looking at potentially doing a very small addition to the north side of their building, which really isn't what we're coming here for, but that's how it all kind of got started. We went to the planning department, said, this is what we're looking at doing, and they said, well, we're not going to be able to do anything until we get into current zoning standards. So They said we would have to go to S1, and just to give you an idea, it's like a 1,500 square foot addition. You see the little wings on the back left side there, and the little. I mean, I have nothing to point with, but it would just be extending the shortest little wing on the north side to meet the length of the other wing. So a very small little addition. And to be honest, I'm not sure if they're going to move forward with that at this point. But they said, well, since we've come this far, we'll go ahead and bring it into current zoning compliance. And then if they do decide to move forward, we would have to come back to the historic district commission with the design of the addition.
Just out of curiosity, regardless if this moves forward or not, we need, we had, whether they move forward milestones, are the services at all going to change from what they are currently being offered today?
No, this would just be a small office addition. They're just short on office space for their staff.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? That we will move to, is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Hello, I'm Lisa Mabry Williams. I live at 1717 Bruce Street. I have lived there since 1986, over 37 years. Number one, Milestones has not been there for 50 years. I sent all of the planning commissioners a letter voicing my opposition to this. Do I need to read that letter again?
We have received your letter, and it
Mhm.
was emailed out to us in a very
Okay.
timely manner. So thank you for that.
I mean, Antioch Baptist Church was a great neighbor. Milestones has moved in. They've increased the traffic. They've increased the noise. They've increased the light pollution. It's R2A. If they're not going to change their services, if they're not just planning on selling the property, we wish it to remain R2A residential. We're in a historic neighborhood. Many of us have spent years and years trying to preserve our homes and the older part of town. This would be a negative in that the new pedestrian bikeway is scheduled to go down South Boulevard. This expansion or this designation into an S1 that can increase traffic even more. Because once y'all zone it S1, anything can go in there. Just offices, they can move manufactured homes onto the property. It will not be preserved. We have certain protections, our neighborhood, under the R2A zoning. That would go away if it goes to S1. The traffic has increased. Davis and Bruce is a very dangerous intersection. We wish our neighborhood to remain residential, and we live there. This is our homes. Many of the people in the neighborhood are older, and I spoke with many of them and told them what was going on, but a lot of them have health issues now and aren't here tonight. But we really want you to consider what you're doing to our neighborhood if this is zoned S1.
Thank you, Lisa. Are there any questions for Lisa this evening? Go ahead.
It's not really a question for Lisa, but for a comment. I just wanted to know if, because it is in a historic district, and she said that if it goes to S1, that manufactured homes could go there. Is that completely accurate since it's in the historic district, or if it was outside of that zone, that may be accurate? I just wanted clarification on that.
If I with staff, is this a Robinson or Old Conway?
Overlay.
It's the overlay district. It's not the historic.
If this moves forward into development, they would have to meet
Zoning code says it is allowed without a conditional use permit, manufactured housing in an S1 designation.
Right, but with the overlay district, I think is your question, would they allow that?
But still, the neighborhood was there first. If they need that much expansion, maybe they need to move elsewhere like Antioch did.
I had a question for staff. What is the difference in the R2? Like, what is the main difference in what that allows currently or does not allow? Obviously, when I looked through this before, I kind of
I get my staff to pull up some of the typical allowed uses.
So while staff is doing that, before we bring this back into commission, Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and let you sit down unless you have any other comments. There may be a couple of other speakers to speak in opposition. And so while staff is pulling that up, if we could go ahead and give the opportunity for the next speaker to come up. I do think that it is a fair question to answer before the next speaker if we could do that, because I do think it will help with the understanding. So I think it's the right question to ask. So if you can just, no, you're fine to stay there. I'm trying to multitask. And it may be just a moment before we can get this pulled up. That's fine.
Yeah.
You one of you may need to come to the microphone just for our online viewers here. Okay, so the question is the difference in the current zoning versus the new zoning. Is that fair, Lori? Okay, and so Ryan, can you help us out with that before we jump back to?
Yes, R2A is two-family residential, so you're going to look at more like duplexes. S1 is an institutional zoning, so you would see like a school, a church.
And that's, I guess, was my question. It can't ever be, I mean, there's a church there right now, so short of tearing it down and then building back duplexes or something, that would be the current zoning now. It's not single family.
Right.
So,
if it was to redevelop now and it was kept in its current zoning of R2A, it would go back as duplexes, or it could go back as single family housing also. But duplexes would be the highest use for that property as R2A.
Is it fair to say that Milestone, if this does not move forward, the request to rezone, could the services that are currently being offered continue to be offered, or would they not be in compliance?
Yeah, I mean, they can continue to operate. Any expansion of the building, though, would require them to rezone to S1.
so just basically when the church was built there, it never got rezoned.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Just one question. So if the zoning is left alone, would they be able, and they need to expand, would they be able to apply for a conditional use or a variance to be able to add that on?
The zoning would have to come into compliance before they could expand. So it would have to go into an institutional zoning.
Why is that different than the thing that we just did to allow a pool to be left over a property easement?
The pool was a reduction of a reduction of the easement. So by reducing the easement, we made it where there was no conformance issue. So if you have a 20-foot easement and it's reduced, then that 20-foot easement doesn't exist at that location. Your question was more about a variance. Could you have a variance relative to zoning? Typically, you don't attach to relative to the zoning. If there was a development submittal, then there's processes for variances to a certain point, but we would have to review that. And I would just kind of remind everyone this is a rezone request, so we would still have to review a development proposal and determine if there was a variance allowance with what was submitted.
Right, and I think with the one we saw previously, it was a home. And you may have said this. It was a home that had a pool that was in an easement, and this is the wrong zoning for what's on the property.
So what zonings allow for conditional use for child care facilities? Because I know we have issued conditional uses in certain zonings.
Child care facilities, conditional use. You cannot get it in an R2A. You can get a conditional use in an R2, an MF1, 2, or 3. It's allowed by right in any commercial district, and it's conditional in pretty much everything else except for the institutional S1, which is what they've applied for.
So is it fair to say in very simple terms, is the intensity of the request that is triggering it to be a rezoning request and not qualify for a conditional use?
I would say so.
Okay. If that's not right, please say.
No, I think,
please say otherwise.
S1 is a more intense use than R2A.
But did you say conditional use was allowed in R2A?
No, it's not allowed in R1 or R2A. It is allowed beyond that.
So, quick question, and Chris, you may have answered what I was going to ask with the statement about y'all would have to review a development plan. But were any conditions or anything considered with y'all's approval? Because there's not any in here that would, I guess, help
No, we
address some of these.
You can't put a condition of approval on a rezone.
This may be a question again for the applicant, but I think she stated that they weren't immediately moving forward with the development right now. And this had been triggered by potentially wanting to do something. So if the request for S1 was denied tonight, what would be the process for them to start over, since they're not doing anything at this moment and it doesn't sound like that they've even submitted any?
I think if it
plans.
gets denied, do they have to wait a year to resubmit on a rezoning? It'd be a year. It would be a year before they could reapply for a rezoning again.
Good question. Good process question. Okay, Ryan, we're going to let you go back, and then we're going to hop back over. So open a different Google tab, and we're going to come back to the opposition part. So you are here to speak in opposition. Second speaker, so 3 minutes. And if you could state your name and your address.
My name's Giuseppe Anna Bartlett. I live at 1722 Bruce Street. I am going to reiterate everything that Lisa said, but I want to add 2 things. I can't confirm that the additional traffic in that area comes directly from the school, but there is a lot of additional traffic, and I've lived in that house for 10 years. In the first 5 years that I lived there, there was 5 accidents at my corner of Bruce and Davis from people flying through. There is, if it is an R2A now and it gets rezoned, Milestone's intention right now is to add on an office building. What happens when they decide to sell? Okay, and that's what we have to look, at being residents in that area. So what happens when they decide to sell or something else happens and the rezoning allows for offices, manufactured homes, those type of things? My understanding of the R2A is that it does not allow anything that is an incompatible use. And what is being requested is an incompatible use to the residents that live in that area.
Are there any questions this evening? Are you? Okay.
I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. And is there anyone else here to speak in opposition? You could state your name and address, please.
I'm Steve Evans, 234 Davis Street. This is the second public hearing I've ever been to, and the first one was in 1996 when Antioch sold to the Faulkner County Day School. And they were trying to, I think it was a commercial zoning or something they were going for, and our argument, mine was, I don't mind the day school, but can we keep it a residential zoning? And that's where the R2A came from. So in fact, I don't mind milestones. Like the lady said, I meant to time myself that, I can't tell if the traffic's more because of milestones. That's fine with me. In fact, they can add on an office building, but I don't want to open it up to S1. I read the list, and it's got a lot of stuff that could happen if they sell and move out. And like Lisa said, this is our neighborhood. It's a historic neighborhood. We love it. I am opposed to the rezoning.
You still have 2 minutes.
I've still got 2 minutes?
You still have 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
You're very efficient with your words.
Well, I mean, like I made that same argument in 1996. I don't mind them being there. I don't want a billiard parlor, which was one of the things under S1. I know that's unlikely, but if they can function the way they do now with the R2A, please leave it that way. I understand their need to expand, and if there was some way to do that within R2A, but S1 opens up too many other possibilities that would have a very negative effect on our homes, our neighborhood. So,
Thank you. Okay, but before we hang on just a second, let's bring this back into commission. I will say what I can tell here from the nonverbals is we have maybe the staff that want to say something and the applicant maybe wants to respond. But before we move forward with that, let's bring it back into commission and have a little bit of discussion, because that may warrant additional questions. So what are you guys thinking?
I I think without us talking about it, we're probably thinking the same thing. Can somebody from staff just clarify for us, what would the recourse be to allow them to add this office space without rezoning to S1? What are the other paths to that?
And before you respond, Ryan, just so that we can be fully educated on this, I think it seems that there's a great deal of concern, rightfully so, by the neighborhood about if Milestones doesn't exist, the impact of this decision. And we don't seem to have clarity in this room on that. So can maybe someone serve as the expert and try to clear up a few things?
Yeah, I think the best course to take that would maybe satisfy both sides would be a rezoning to R2. Now, what would need to happen would they would come back to you guys. 2/3 of you would have to vote to hear for this rezoning if it's within a year. If you approve to put it on the agenda, they come back to the next agenda, and they can try to rezone to R2 and then apply for a conditional use, which does allow for this type of use at that place.
With that conditional use, could they add on the additional office space?
Excuse me, what was that?
With that conditional use, would that allow them to add on the additional office space?
It would after the conditional use was approved.
Okay.
If the applicant would like, they can amend their application tonight to rezone to R2, and you can vote on that. But I mean, that would be up to the applicant.
Sure.
That was my next question, was if that works for Emily, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask that.
No, I would add, if this is, if a rezone we can't add the conditional use permit.
I understand.
Right.
We'll have to come back to the conditional use, but we could
Just
do
the
the
zoning
zoning piece.
piece. Right.
Is that accurate, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. You can do the rezone. It still has to go through to city council for approval. After it's rezoned, then a conditional use permit could be requested by the owner. At that point, it would still have to come through the planning commission, and I believe from there it goes to that conditional use permit also goes to city council.
So from a procedural standpoint, we can take a motion for like a 3-minute recess, or do you have? Well,
I think we're
what's
wanting
the
a voice for
recess?
Emily, right?
Right. We would like to hear from Emily, I think.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, Emily, let us just put all the pressure in the world on you and bring you back into the microphone.
It's fine. I just wanted to say that Milestones had no intention to rezone. They didn't even know they weren't in current
Sure.
zoning
Right.
conformance. We went and sat down about the possibility of this small addition with the planning department and what steps we would have to take. And they said, well, you can't do anything until you come into current zoning compliance. And I said, well, which zone is that? They said S1. So they would.
Everybody did what
don't
they were
care
supposed to
what
do.
Zone they're in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, S1 will go. You go apply for S1, and so that we can even consider this. So if it's R2 with the conditional use, I don't think they care one way or the other. If they could say R2A, they would be fine. But that clearly does not conform to the zoning standards.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I do want to caution the risk of the rezone being approved and then the conditional use permit could be denied. Staff can't take any sort of action to an item that hasn't been applied for yet. It would also be subject to the planning commission coming back, and there is a risk that you could rezone to R2 and not get a conditional use permit.
Well, but couldn't that be the case anyway?
Yeah.
It could be the case.
Right.
So
Just from a procedural standpoint, regardless, something's got to come back to the next meeting, whether it's conditional use or whatever. So you're going to see us again next month. June's a lovely month to come visit us. Would anyone be opposed to maybe just tabling this and bringing it all at the same time? How does the commission feel about that?
Can we see all at the same time next month, Beth?
Amend.
Okay.
The bylaws require the item to come back next month, but it's not tabled. It's an amended application.
And at the same time, could we also hear the request for the conditional use at the same time? Let's just, we're making all the assumptions that occurs. Okay.
Okay. So I think that's probably our best option. Verbally requesting to amend it to a R2 with hopefully conditional use. And I mean, that's fine that we're not in any big hurry. Like I said, I don't even know if they're going to do this addition. We've come this far, so we might as well see it through. So.
Okay.
Since we do these so very rarely, we have a request from the applicant to amend. Is there anyone that spoke in opposition that would like to respond to that? Or are we comfortable just trying to give everyone the opportunity to speak here? But that'll give you 30 days to do so. Okay. Okay, perfect. Awesome. I'm going to bring this back into commission. We have a request for an amended application to go from, the original application was to go from R2A to S1. That has been amended for the request to be R2A to R2. Everybody following that? Commissioners, what say you?
Do we need a motion to accept the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, motion.
Seconded.
Okay. Now we are voting to approve this. So this will be the only vote that we take on this. So the motion is to approve the amendment to request for the applicant to move to R2A to R2. That's okay. Let's ask questions. Let's make sure we're all on the same page.
Before we vote, I would like, I guess, to hear from staff that nothing we do with this vote will impact their current operations.
Should be correct.
Okay.
Because there's nothing has been approved.
Okay.
I think Brian had some additional input.
They can operate regardless. I mean, it would be a legal non-conforming use. What you're amending is the request to amend the application from a rezoning from R2A to R2. You're not voting on the rezoning tonight. You'll vote on the rezoning
That was my question.
at the next meeting.
That was my procedural question. So we have to vote to approve the amended request, and then we'll vote on the actual request next time?
Yes.
Crystal clear.
Well, we'll vote on the zoning next
Yeah,
time.
I'm
This
with
is the request to amend it. So we're approving that. And then they perhaps may consider adding the conditional use when it comes back.
Okay. I'm good.
So we are voting to accept the amendment. Is everybody clear? If
Yes.
not, please ask. Let's all be on the same page. Okay.
We had a motion from Lori, didn't we?
I had a motion.
And
Who got
who's
the
the
second?
second?
Alexander got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? I cannot believe nobody made the R2D2 joke. I was waiting for it
Man,
the
I
whole
thought
entire
it.
time.
I really thought it. you know.
I was waiting for it. So I appreciate the professionalism of the commission this evening. Okay. Thank you all for the comments. This takes us to our third item on the agenda. And are there any announcements or anything from the director or from staff?
I had just one quick thing. Some of the commissioners were unable to attend the spring workshop. You'll see that the Planning Commission spring workshop agenda, I went ahead and put that on the table. If you want to watch the video, and you will see some cards on the inside. If you go to the last session of the video and return those cards back to me with the exercise complete, we will be using those in the future. And if you need any assistance on how to fill those cards out, feel free to reach out to our office and we'll help you with that. Tara is our new long-range planner. She started 2 weeks ago. She is not here tonight, but she is going to collect those and utilize those for some graphics for in the future.
Arts and crafts.
And homework. I want to commend the staff on a very well done packet and a greatly run meeting. So thank you for the teamwork and the cooperation for those online. It might have seemed just a hair bit chaotic, but can't say enough great words about the work that happened in tonight's meeting.
Yeah, and I would just add on, great job on the training, extremely helpful.
It was awesome. It was great.
So basically, you guys rock. You can take the rest of the evening off. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Have a great night. See everybody back
Thanks,
here in June.
everybody.